What is going on, everybody? Happy Horror Fest. Tonight, me and the panel are going to be talking here on Blood Splatter Chatter Live about the 1972 Brian De Palma film, Sisters. What up? What is going on, everybody? As I said, welcome to Blood Splatter Chatter. We're talking Sisters tonight, and we have a fantastic panel with us. Mr. Rocket Robbie Billups from Pop Culture Philosophers. What up, my brother? Thanks for being on the panel tonight.
Pop, pop, boom, man. So excited to be here to add another channel to Horror Fest. It's been a dream. This is something I started in my living room with my friends over a decade ago. And here we are tonight on Blood Splatter Chatter, everybody. Station.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Whoa. I didn't mean to bring you yet. Well, that's coming up in a moment. Thank you for being here, brother. And thank you for letting me be part of the awesomeness that is Horror Fest 2023. So I appreciate that.
The honor is mine, my friend.
Hell yeah. Station, my friend. Phable from One Collection Down in the house. Best thing going on IG. Moving soon. His awesome show, Blame Phable and His Amazing Friends with Nick Comic Culture, and Brother Joe coming to YouTube soon. Thank you for being here, my friend.
Yeah, man. Anytime. You know, I love hanging out on Blood Splatter Chatter, man.
Hell yeah, my brother.
Fun.
And Brother Lynk. Since I've been calling Phable Brother Phable, I got to call you Brother Lynk. Thanks for being here. I got a chance to listen to damn near the whole show yesterday. Great show. I keep saying it. Go check out at Dr. Doom's Fan Club on IG for a fantastic comic book and hip hop show. So Lynk, thank you for being here as well, my brother.
My pleasure. I just get a chance to hear people listen to me complain about movies, so you know I'm there.
And we get a little extra reverb. We had the enjoyment of Lynk showing off. He just moved into this new warehouse that he's living in. The only furniture he has in there is a few comic boxes, so that's why you get that beautiful reverb with stuff tonight.
You get to hear him twice.
Coming live from the church, man, is what it sounds like. Dude, that's awesome.
Hell yeah. All right, so this is a pretty an underseen film, I will say. Sisters, again, Brian De Palma. This isn't his first film, but it is the first film that one might say is recognizably Brian De Palma. It's his first film that wasn't like a comedy or a drama. It's him moving into something a little bit more on the dark side of the macabre, more Hitchcock inspired. But I'm going to start with you, Robbie. Actually, I want to pull up this slideshow real quick. This is the man right here. He was part of what was known as the movie Brats back in the 70s, which was all the good pictures that have all the group with them. None of them have De Palma, but it's De Palma, it's Spielberg, Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola. Help me out here. George Lucas.
Yeah, George Lucas.
So he had so many amazing movies in his career, and I just wanted to put up a few of like the images that stuck out to me, like from his films. I just grabbed 3 of them. Like, he's responsible for this image and Carrie, just the whole movie. Obviously, he directed that. This iconic scene in Scarface, some of the biggest moments in film history, and then of course Mission Impossible and a whole bunch more. Untouchables. The list goes on and on. But I did want to start with you, Robbie, and just ask you. And maybe I could have warned you, but I feel like you're the type of guy I don't need you to. Who is Brian De Palma? Like, what is your thoughts on his career? What do you think when you think Brian De Palma?
Well, Brian De Palma, immediately I think of Alfred Hitchcock, right? Because there's always that comparison of Brian De Palma to Alfred Hitchcock. And then sometimes you watch his movies and you're like, I can get that bit with like some stuff in Dress to Kill, which we did on PCP Movie Night for March Madness this year. Other stuff in other movies, but then you watch things like Scarface, and I haven't seen all of his films. I haven't seen like Body Double or what's the one, Blowout, which I hear is amazing.
With John Travolta, yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. You know, I've seen like Scarface. I've seen this. I've seen Dress to Kill. I've seen Mission Impossible, unfortunately. I've seen Phantom of Paradise. So many of those movies, you're like, I get that this is a dude who's influenced by Hitchcock and probably studies him, but he is not like the next Hitchcock. That's not actually what's going on in his films. Now, in this one, there's a lot of Psycho references, including the actual composer, right? But to me, Brian De Palma is always that dude who is a part of that that 70s group that you were talking about, but never quite, I don't know, came out of it. Always kind of felt a little bit more outsider to me. And some of his movies still throughout his career, for the most part, still kind of feel a little transgressive, even throughout, like when other movies, like when Spielberg and Lucas are like cashing in with Indiana Jones and Star Wars and E.T. and shit like that. You got this dude making Dressed to Kill.
Right.
Problematic then and is problematic now. You get what I'm saying? But like, it's a dude who's kind of pushing those boundaries. Even in this movie, he's doing it. And I also got to really applaud him for never letting go of that hairline, bro.
he clung on to that thing for years. he's still clinging on to it a little bit. He's never went to the full shaved. He's holding on to that full side hair going on. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, Robbie. What about you quickly, Phable? Like, what is your, because I guess I'm the type, you guys know this about me. I never used to pay too much attention to like who the directors are and all that, unless it's a huge Spielberg, Tarantino, someone like that. De Palma is a name that as I've gotten deeper into cinema, I hear spoken about more, and depending on who you hear talk about him, some people like put him up there like on a massive pedestal. And I've really been going through his career a lot this past week or so, getting ready for the show. And I'm realizing like even some of his most popular movies, like Scarface, it's a dope movie, but it's one of my least favorite of the big gangster movies. Carrie's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Untouchables I rewatched this week, and it's like, I mean, it's pretty dope, but it didn't like blow me away personally, honestly. But I like Mission Impossible. Haven't seen it in 15 years, but I loved that shit when it came out. That shit was fucking dope. But where are you at on him, Phable? Like when you hear Brian De Palma, what's your mind go to?
I mean, I gotta echo Robbie's thoughts on it, his sentiments on him. I feel like he's a little hit or miss for me personally. I do think he is definitely outside that Hollywood vein. You know, he's trying to push I don't know. I guess he's trying to push film. You know, I'm not necessarily saying a message, but like film. You know, where he thinks it should go. You know, in certain ways, and I don't agree with him all the time. You know, but I do recognize him for being a master at his craft. Regardless if I really like his movies or not, I think he definitely is an artist. You know, he's an artist. So yeah, Brian De Palma. I mean, like I said, hit or miss, man. Like you say, Scarface is one of your least. I mean, Scarface is one of my favorites.
Really?
Maybe
yeah,
it's because it's the most cohesive of his films, in my opinion. It's the one that everybody could follow, right? Like compared to this, right? We'll get into this, but you know what I mean? It's the most commercial, I guess, of his films. And I may have a little bit of a bias because it takes, you know, it's a Hispanic man and things that you go through from coming from the Caribbean and things like that. So I might have a little bit of a bias with that movie. But
plus, Phable has chainsawed a man in a bathroom before.
I was thinking that too. I didn't want to say it on air, but I'm glad you did.
but yeah, for the most part, I recognize his talent, but I don't like all of his films.
Right. I'm with you 100%. I agree with everything that you said, brother. What about you, Steph? I know you were gone for a minute, but basically we're just talking about your opinions on De Palma and what you think of his films, where your fandom lies with him.
I switched locations. Hopefully the reverberation's not.
You sound fucking a million times better.
You went to the Dollar General warehouse, didn't you? I love it.
Just that, for the most part, like he's a prolific, profound, iconic director, but he is, in my taste, hit or miss. You know, there's some stuff by his I think is really masterful and timeless, and then there's other shit I'm like, what are you doing, De Palma? You know, so.
Yeah, that's one thing, watching a documentary about him and certain people saying that only a quote unquote, this is this dude's opinion, only a genius could fail as strong and hard as he has failed at times in his career. That it really takes someone, you look at some of Argento's movies and you know what I mean? You can see that. It takes a certain kind of person to go that wrong.
You know, he's also very influenced by Argento and those like Italian directors, the Giallo and stuff like that. That's definitely something prevalent in his films, including, of course, Dressed to Kill, which he still say. I love it. I love that De Palma's also always like, no, I'm not that influenced by Hitchcock or Giallo. And we're like, bruh.
Well, going through, there's a really interesting documentary just called De Palma on HBO that I watched. He does admit like he's a huge Hitchcock fan. He studied Hitchcock. He says most people that compare their work and that say he's more mimic. Of course, he would say this. People say that he's more like mimicking Hitchcock. He says that they don't understand Hitchcock or De Palma. I'm not going to sit and try to pretend that I understand either of them as well as he probably does. But I did watch a couple of Hitchcock films this week, and I did watch a couple of De Palma films, and clearly you can see the obvious influence. But even in this movie, Sisters, the one we're going to get into, it's like a lot of people will mention that there's like specific nods to a bunch of Hitchcock films, references that I'm not getting. Rope, Rear Window, Hitchcock films that weren't like available to watch in the US for a lot of years that most people haven't seen. I haven't seen any of those. But it's clear like he knew that he was referencing Hitchcock, but he was trying to, whether this is like satirizing the Hitchcock genre or that thriller genre, or if it's just playing with it and trying to add his own twist. Robbie, you'd be able to answer that better than I would, because I'm just not as familiar with Hitchcock as I would like to be able to answer that question. But what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, you can't compare every De Palma film to every Hitchcock film, right? But I could compare this film to Psycho. Like,
Right.
not only did you get the same composer, right? Like, the entire first act and the lead into the second act is straightly just riffed from Psycho. Not ripped off, but riffed. It's like, hey, they did it. We're going to do it. Then we're going to subvert that even further.
Right.
And that's what he's trying to do in this movie. He's taking his, and this is what great musicians do, whether it's like the folk singers of the 60s or the hip hop artists and DJs of today in the last 20 years, but you take what influences you and you mold it into something new, right? And that's what De Palma does. And that's why he stands up there with people like Spielberg and Lucas and Coppola and even somebody like a John Carpenter to me, or a Dario Argento. And yeah, I think it's annoying when he's like, no, I wasn't super influenced by Giallo when I made Dress to Kill. Bro, he totally was. And the same thing with Hitchcock here. Like, this is, there's a lot of Psycho elements to this movie, but it's like his version of it. Even the logo to this movie is a riff on Psycho. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, like, I mean, it's there and it's obvious.
Right.
And I appreciate that, actually.
And I think it would have hit harder at the time. Like, coming off 30 years of Hitchcock being the most celebrated director in this genre, more people were going to see the clear references that he was making and, you know what I mean, just kind of understand the whole thing a little bit more than I do here in 2023. But it's okay to get further into Sisters a little bit. This was the inspiration for this film. These are real life conjoined twins, Dasha and Sasha, I think, Russian twins. And there was a Life magazine article about these two twins, and De Palma saw it. And just this image right here of the one sister looking very normal and kind of joyful and happy, looking over at her sister, just like kind of the look that she's giving her, where the other one looks like maybe she's, you know, something's wrong with her, right? And he says this, I saw him say this in like 4 different articles or 4 different interviews, and he says it like with like this kind of glee every time that he says it. In the text underneath this, it says Sasha and Dasha are perfectly normal physiologically, but as they enter adolescence, they're developing psychological issues. And for whatever reason, like, he laughs every time he says that. He's like, yeah, they sure look like it, right?
Well, one of them has joined the Illuminati. Like, you see what's going on there? Like, what's going on?
Right. But I just thought that was kind of cool. Like, he saw this and he let his imagination run away with him. What if you had a conjoined twin and one of them was evil? So it is a pretty interesting premise for a movie, and something I've seen this image myself, actually. But let's go ahead and get into the movie, man. It starts out, and I want to start with just getting into these two characters. We meet, I always forget his name. I don't think they ever say it in the movie. Philip and Danielle. Danielle played by Margot Kidder, and Philip played by Lyle Williams. And there's this game show at the beginning of the movie where there's a blind woman played by Margot Kidder. She's set up, she's an actor, and they're trying to see if this guy is going to sit around and watch this blind woman get undressed in front of him, or if he's going to walk away. And I just want to start here. Robbie, what did you think of this opening scene and the way that this game show plays out, where he sits and he watches her for a minute, take his bra off, and then he walks away? Like, how funny was this?
It was really funny, actually. And Yeah, I had never seen this movie. I never heard of this movie, right? And then you brought it up on your thing, and you even mentioned, hey, man, I think this would be one you'd like to dig into. And when I found out it was Brian De Palma, I was like, yeah, I haven't seen anything of his, I think, pre-Carrie. So let's check it out. And when this movie opened, I was like, what's going on here? Because it felt like it was something like of a satirical nature of today.
Yeah,
right?
it felt modern.
Yeah, it felt very modern. It felt like something like a Terry Gilliam would have done. Like, so that satirical nature of it and just the ridiculousness of our game shows.
Right.
Like, I thought that was super fun. Plus, dude's reaction. Plus, Lynk, you never told us how old you were and that you were in this movie, bro. Because the first thing I thought of was this fucking Steph, man. Like, straight up, man.
I did want to go ahead and take your face and like Photoshop it on this dude's head, or I could just take his afro and put it on you, and it probably would have worked pretty well. But I'm glad you brought up the age of this. I looked back and through all the movies that we've covered together, the three of us here on this channel and on Dylan's channel, this is the oldest movie that we've ever talked about, unless Horror Express is older. Horror Express came out the same year. Exorcist came out the next year. I might have missed some. What'd you say there, Link?
No, I was gonna say, was this 73?
73.
It's one of those
Captain
that
Kronos
came out in 72.
Captain Kronos was 72, just so everybody knows, but it was released in 74.
Right, same thing. Same thing with this. It came out in America.
But we've talked about Universal monster movies on other shows. No, but
on
not
your
here.
channel.
Not
I'm
here.
just saying, the three of us, this group together, like I was really surprised. Like,
this is the oldest film we've ever talked about?
Yeah, there's certain movies that are 10 years newer than this that feel 10 years older than this. And even Horror Express, like whatever you think of that movie, it's just a good way to be like, oh, that's where horror was. That's Hammer horror. And it's past its prime, but it's one of the biggest names. The difference between a lot of those movies and this one, it does feel like way more modern and just being in an apartment building and just out of the castles and into the city kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And today, actually, if this movie came out today, everybody would be claiming it was too woke, probably, to be honest.
Right. Well, I mean, that's another thing. There is a shitload of social commentary in this movie, and for my money, it's the way that I like to see social commentary. They're just kind of sprinkling it in and not preaching about it. But I really just wanted to bring up this scene because I thought it was fucking hilarious. They make it seem like this guy is being so chivalrous because he doesn't sit and watch this blind woman get fully naked in front of him. But they never mention that he sits there and lets her take her top off, so she's just got her bra on. And they're like, what a hero. What a great guy he is. But let's just go.
It's the nipple that's bothersome, man. Right? So
bothersome nipple. That was the name of my second LP. But so these are our two characters that we're meeting here. If we got Philip, who we don't know much about.
Oh, he shaved.
It's not even just like Steph shaved. This is exactly how I think Steph would act in these situations. I don't know. With what I know about you, Link, like this is I was the whole time I was like, it was just the embodiment of cool, which I get from you. Cool and dreamy. I don't know, man, whatever. I'm crushing too hard, man. Let's let it go.
All right, so I just want to know what you guys think of our two main characters. First 20 minutes, we're getting to know these two. The one wins the game show, and he gets given tickets. Of course, he's the black dude, light-skinned black man, gets given tickets to the African Club for African dining, where you're going to feel right at home. And then Margot Kidder, being the actress on the show and being a woman, she gets gifted a set of knives. So this is the type of little social commentary that is kind of sprinkled throughout this film, where it's just like, oh, they're satirizing the state of social politics in 1972. But I just kind of want to know, and Link, I'm going to start with you. What did you think of like the first 20 minutes of the film before the murder kicks off? Am I the only one? Like, because like it could go either way. Either you guys could be super annoyed by Margot Kidder's accent and her acting, or you're like me and you're just charmed to death by her, and you're kind of falling in love with this face right here in the first 20 minutes. So where do you stand, brother?
No, I really enjoyed the first 20 minutes. Like, it was kind of sad to see old boy go so soon because I like the quick, brief relationship they were building, or the rapport they had. I agree with you. I think Margot Kidder was super charming, adorable. I almost, because she's so what's the word I'm looking for? As Lois Lane, she's very I don't want to say aggressive. I'm trying to like more
she's a little
in your
pushy.
face.
She's more like the
Yeah,
opposite
yeah,
character in this movie.
yeah. She's very shy and timid in this movie, and so I've never seen Margot Kidder like that. So it was a big change for me, but I really enjoyed it because I didn't think Margot Kidder could pull it off. To be honest, after I'd seen Lois Lane, so not to say that take away from her acting ability, but I thought that's kind of like a role she kind of went for, is like not the hardened chick. Damn it, I'm trying to find the right word, but the abrasive chick, the in your face chick. But no, she's very shy, very cute, very charming. I enjoyed it.
I agree with you. There's so many times where you can't fully appreciate an actor until you see them in a role that's so different than the roles that you've seen them in previously. And that's how I felt about this.
Absolutely.
And also, like, she's got, including this movie, she's got a nice little horror catalog to go through with Sisters, with obviously Black Christmas, where she's a very different role, and then Amityville Horror. Those are three, I mean, depending on what you guys think of this one, fairly important films in horror history. But what about you, Phable? The first 20 minutes before the murder, where do you stand with the two lovebirds in the film?
Well, first, I love that opening, that game show opening. Like you guys said, the satirical stuff. I mean, that's why I love Paul Verhoeven movies, for this same kind of thing, where, you know what I mean? And yeah, the social commentaries all over the place right in the beginning. And I thought they had a cute little relationship, you know, the way they met or whatever. And I loved her acting. I thought she was great. And I agree with you. I forgot his name, but he was a cool cat. You know what I'm saying? He just like, he got the guy kicked out the bar like this. He was like, man, get out of here, bro. They just carted him off. Like, it's like, oh man, this guy got some pull.
Like, bro, you're at the African Cafe, man. What the fuck you think was about to happen, man?
So yeah, no, I totally was into it. I was into the vibe. I didn't think she was annoying at all. I thought she pulled off the accent very well. And I could see what was the interest in her for, like, maybe Donner and Superman,
right?
You know what I mean? Or people in the future for her future films. I could see why she would be picked, you know, because she's versatile for sure. I've never seen this before, so seeing her doing this role, I'm blown away. I'm like, holy shit, Margot Kidder.
Hell yeah, dude.
I didn't think she was a big deal in Superman. You know what I mean? I never gave her that kind of like clout, like if she's a great actress. But I think now she proved me wrong, man. I totally get it.
Hell yeah, dude. That's awesome to hear. What about you, Robbie?
Well, you forgot another movie that she's in that's iconic in horror cinema history, which is Superman 4, Quest for Peace. That's a horrific film. It's a horrific film.
I wonder where you were going with that.
Yeah, no, she's great in the film. I absolutely, I get exactly what y'all are talking about, because she is kind of more assertive, abrasive. Is the right word for Black Christmas in particular, you know, but with Lois, it's more like assertive and just more like kind of like I don't know, man, just not like warm, you know, necessarily.
Right.
Not cold, but not overly warm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like you're going to have to work for this shit. And I like women like that. Right. So I kind of like her as Lois. But I think she's adorable in this film. I think she works very well. I think, dude, is it Philip? Is that the character's name?
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if they ever say his name, but that's what's on Wikipedia, or it's on the internet. But
yeah, well, I love the opening of this film. Like the first 20 minutes of this film, I'm completely on board for the weird opening, these two characters getting along, him kind of making a stand, the social commentary. Yeah, she's getting knives. She's a woman. He's getting a dinner to the African cafe or diner or whatever the hell it is, because he's a black man. Like it's like, and all those fucking old white people in the goddamn audience just like clapping, like, yay. I'm like, is this what it felt like when they sent us to space camp on Double Dare? I don't fucking know, but it worked so well for me. That first act and their performances are what cemented it. And Margot Kidder is really great in the first act, and it really comes to notice when you see her in the rest of the film.
Right. I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, I mean, pretty much the main reason why we're talking about this film right now is, and we're going to get into the second half. I'm going to fully figure out how I feel about the second half after we talk about it together. I talked to Stu a little bit earlier. He's like, "What'd you think of the movie?" I'm like, "I don't fucking know yet." And I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and I picked
Can
it.
Can I just interject something real quick, just on hindsight, thinking about the first 20 minutes? knowing what we know about her and what happens after, why the hell was she on a game show?
I don't know. I don't think anybody else knew that about her.
I think she works. I think she's like a production assistant and a slash model who was a production assistant on that show, is what I think. But I only watched it the one time. Verno's seen it multiple times.
Right.
Did they mention that right? That she's like a PA on that show or something?
She's an actress and she's working on the show. She's like their actress, you know what I mean, hired for it.
Okay.
Which is, I think it's funny that they gave, that's like afterwards, like if Pat Sajak gave Vanna White a gift, all right, and we appreciate you being on the show, Vanna, here are your knives, kind of, because she's like a part of the gig. But I wish I had more slides to lead up to this moment, but I don't. It's kind of hard to find a lot of images for this movie because it's kind of rare. But we get a situation where they wake up the next morning. They make sweet, sweet love. We get this weird, like Cronenbergian image of the scar where we see the two sisters had been separated. And the next morning, Margot Kidder has like some kind of, it's hard to tell. Like she's having some kind of fit, right? And she's hearing her sister. She's in the other room. They're speaking in French, and she's run out of pills. So she sent old boy here to run out and get her some more pills. And we never see the sister. He gets her the pills and he decides to also get her this cake. He brings the cake back to her. I don't know exactly what pictures I have. Oh, okay. All right. And I really wish I could play the actual audio, but I'm going to go ahead and play this scene from the movie with some audio that I took from my buddy's music that he made. So don't mind that. But I definitely wanted to show off this murder in the film. So after seeing this the first time, like a year ago, and then watching it again, knowing that we were going to be talking about this, after I see this first murder and it goes on where you're seeing a shadow come down with a knife and then the knife actually comes into camera, I'm sitting there laughing about how much I'm thinking Robbie's going to love it after this point. I'm like, Robbie's going to eat this shit the fuck up because this is so, De Palma says he's never seen Argento's films that came up before this. All there was Velvet. What is it? I'm fucking up. The Four Flies one, and then Bird with the Crystal Plumage. And maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But I feel like Argento saw this before he made Deep Red because this is so reminiscent of the opening scenes in Deep Red. And maybe it's just reminiscent of some other Hitchcock stuff that I'm not aware of that they're both influenced by. It probably is, but it's so dope, and I just love the way that this scene comes across. Robbie, what do you think of the murder at this point?
I love this murder. It's one of my favorites in cinema. I'm watching this movie, and I'm thinking I'm watching something from the 80s, right? And not 1972. And like what? So like Psycho was like what, like 61, something like that, maybe. I think so. 60. Like I think this is like the first like kind of shock murder scene since Psycho to this point, right? And you're right. Like, I think at this point, like, I mean, Bird with Crystal Plumage should come out. Cat of Nine Tails, maybe. Right. And if you say Four Flies with Gray Velvet, I'll believe that. But I think so. Like, the 5 Days in Milan was the same year as this, maybe. But like Deep Red hadn't come out yet, right? Or is being made around the Deep Red's like 74 or 75.
75, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that it's interesting to look at this now, thinking about this and seeing that it's not so much like an Argento influence on De Palma. Maybe it's a De Palma influence on Argento that get re-influenced back on De Palma, right? In some kind of way. It's kind of like Hasbro and Transformers, where they bought it from Japan, you know, and then Japan bought their like mold for like G.I. Joe, and it became this one thing, and then it's like this weird cyclical thing. I love the murder scene. She stabs this dude in the dick and in the fucking mouth, man. And like, I don't think I've seen something since as visceral as that. And we've watched some gnarly shit between here and PCP and DHS. Like, we've watched some gnarly shit. And this, like, it got me. It got me out where I was like, ooh. Like, even today, like, I haven't seen, but I've seen a vagina with teeth bite a dick off in a film. You know what I'm saying? But I've never seen something like this. And it worked. It worked. It was raw. It was visceral.
I think you made your point, brother.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, man. Fable, what about you, dude?
Yeah, no. Again, another ahead of its time scene for me. Like it's dated in a lot of ways, right? Like it's not perfect, but I can see this totally, somebody being like, "Holy shit!" back in 1972 when it
Right.
happens. You know what I mean? Like you could tell, like he definitely ahead of his time. I mean, that first scene, the way it opens, now this murder scene, yeah, definitely. Well done, super well done for its time. Definitely Hitchcock influence, without a doubt.
Right.
I mean, I I took a film class in high school, and we studied Psycho, like inside and out, like everything with the freaking
Oh, really?
owl behind what's his name, Norman Bates. There's a scene
Yeah.
where Norman Bates is in a room, and there's an owl just right behind
The
him.
shadow.
Yeah, it's all inference. He's the night owl. You know what I mean? There's a lot of that going on. So yeah, definitely Hitchcock influence, but
Oh yeah.
he did it.
Right. And I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly confident on this. Hitchcock never did anything with this kind of blood, this kind of just the way that his like the makeup, the special makeup effects on his lip, where there's like flapping lips. It's so raw. It's so like still effective.
There are moments in Psycho that are like that though. When dude gets his head like his face slashed before he falls down the stairs, the way he fell down the stairs with the camera angle,
Right.
even the bathroom scene, there are moments where you actually see the knife like kind of almost cut in a way.
Right.
Like at that time, it was like way kind of like too much.
Who's the guy in the who's the guy in the either in the 50s or 60s that made the splatter films? They weren't good films. They're fucking terrible films, but they were crazy gory. Like it does exist, but those movies are like almost unwatchable other than if you just want to see, oh, there was these movies in the 60s that were incredibly bloody. One is called like Blood Feast. Oh,
yeah,
God.
Blood Feast. I got like I think I got like a box set or two on my Amazon wish list, but I can't remember the dude's name.
Right. Shit. I'll look it up. Either that or it's gonna pop in my head at one point. But just to continue this, Steph,
Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Gordon Lewis. Thank you, my friend. I checked some of this stuff out. It's like, it's below porno grade level acting with like some 80s Tom Savini style, like holy shit, gore effects. I mean, it is very gnarly, but it's almost unwatchable unless you're just for academic purposes only. Or better to just watch it in clips, just see what they were doing. But Steph, where you at, brother, on the first murder or the murder?
I enjoyed the whole lead up to it, like when he's like leaving the apartment, like because I was paying attention, like she put like 2 pills on the sink, and then it's like when she's on the phone and he's like getting dressed and changed, and she asks him to go out for her. It's like shortly after he leaves, I believe she's like panicking because she can't find the pills that tied her over until he comes back, and so he gets back after he gets her a cake and everything, being a good dude, and the way she's just laying on the bed or the pull-up bed, I could tell something was about to go down. And so when she finally did it, it was just, this movie kept reminding me, it was one of those movies where I was like, man, this was made in 73 or 72. Like this, like you guys said, just echoing, it's ahead of its time. Like I couldn't believe this is, like you said earlier, reminded me of some 80s slasher flicks. They show the knife go into the, the crotch area, and then it's like, I know everyone said it, but even though we see the shadow, and then we see her pull it out, like it was still effective, and for that to be from 1972, and I was still superbly entertained by gotta give it its credit. It was a well executed scene.
Plus the dude is still the dude. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, he's crawling. No, you did a good point. That fucked me up too, because it's like he's not just done, he starts crawling. I'm like, oh bro, he was like, get out of there. You like, he's going towards the knife, so the closer he gets to the knife, she's just gonna stop there or whatever. Yeah, my bad. Well done seeing that.
Hell yeah, man. No, I'm loving where we're at so far. We're gonna find out where we all our opinions lie at the end of this thing, because basically at this point you've got your two characters. Like I will say, dude, I can sit and rack my fucking brain, and the fact that I barely even know if this is his name, but I believe his name is Philip. Philip might be one of the most like likable characters and relatable and a character that you have connected to in the time that you've spent with them to then get murdered in a horror film like this. There's not a lot of characters that I can think about that have all those qualities where I'm that attached to him. Like, oh shit, he's gone. So now we have our only two characters. Now the one, we don't know if she's the murderer or not. That's kind of the mystery. Was it her sister? Was it her? And we can get into that, and that's going to be part of the what people might not like about this. But at that point, I'm pretty fucking thunderstruck by it. And we get I'm trying to decide what I want to show first. Okay, so what we have, this woman across the street, she has, and we've seen her like once or twice throughout the film where we've noticed like, oh, this woman from her apartment, she's a reporter. We're going to learn this about her. She can see into this apartment, and she sees, I'm trying to think of what I have here. She looks out of her window and she sees this man writing help. I edited this together. This isn't how you see it like in the movie. I wanted to kind of fast forward it so you guys watching that haven't seen it can get a feel of it, but it's like 8 minutes worth of split screen. It cuts back and forth to a little bit of full screen and then to split screen again. But what we're getting is this reporter across the way witnessing this murder, and then our cleanup crew on the other end. We've got Margot Kidder and her ex-husband. He shows up. He's like, what the fuck is going on? There's blood everywhere. What is going on? She turns around and she's like, oh my God, what has happened? And we're getting the split screen of them trying to clean up the murder scene while she is getting with the cops and trying to get them to go investigate the murder scene. Now, this is something that De Palma, he continues to do throughout his career, is play with split screen. He does it at the end of Carrie, very famously at the prom scene, and many other times throughout his career. But I've watched a lot of interviews, and in my opinion, like, and what a lot of people say is this is maybe the best usage of split screen in a movie that's ever been done, or at least up to this point. And he was inspired to do this by, I think he did a movie in '69 where they used a little bit of split screen. And then he filmed a concert with someone where he was filming the band and his partner was filming the audience. And then when they edited it together, like, oh, let's just put it split screen. And they also did that in Woodstock. The people that did that in Woodstock also in '69, they did the same thing. So he's like, oh, that's a cool way to, show this. To me, like the murder and this bit right here are the reason why we're talking about this movie right now. This is what makes it kind of special and stand out. So, Robbie, what did you think of the use of split screen in this movie, or just in general in film? What do you think of it?
In general in film, I don't like it. I usually find it obnoxious. I don't think it works in Carrie. I do think it works in Dress to Kill because there's this like weird thing they're doing to make it almost look like one scene, but it's very like music video. Right? It's very music video. In this one, and by the way, we didn't mention Ang Lee's Hulk uses it like multiple split screens. It uses PIP, picture in picture. You know what I'm saying? He uses that thing, for a different effect for the comic book panel, which I actually think makes the movie more dynamic than it actually is. Right? But that's a movie to revisit, Ang Lee's Hulk.
We should, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I like it here though. Because what it does here is we could easily have the typical like cut scene between her looking, him crawling, her looking, him crawling, her making some tea, him crawling up, her like hearing a noise, halfway looking at the mirror. Like it could have gone such a like more generic route. I do think this is his best use of the split screen, right? Like I do think it's obnoxious. I do think it's too music video-y, but it was, I guess at this time in the late 60s, early 70s, it was new. And it was innovative for its time. And he may have done it the best it's ever been done in this one film. And maybe we should all just leave it alone now.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Well, I can't think of, and maybe you guys can help me out. I can't think of many other times that it's been used in film that stand out as being like, oh, that was cool. Like I can't think of almost any.
Didn't Scorsese use it? I want to say Casino. Not 100%.
Oh man,
I don't know. Anybody in the chat that knows of other usages of split screen? Because
don't they do it in Ocean's 11?
They do it in Ocean's 11 for sure, and 12 and 13.
I like,
and eventually Ocean's 69.
That's hilarious. What about you then, Phable? What did you think of the way it was used in this movie?
I don't find it obnoxious, but I understand what Robbie means. I know what he's saying. But yes, it was well done here because it helped build the tension. They're trying to get rid of a body. She's trying to get the cops up there. And that's the whole reason for it. And I think it works perfectly to build that tension.
Right.
And all the social shit comes out in here too at the same time. The cops don't want to believe her, hey, you shouldn't have wrote a bad piece about us. Like, I mean, like, what are we in the fucking 30s?
Right. I love that bit there, because this is another thing that kind of helps me understand the era. I'm not a historian, but she says this isn't a police state just yet. It's like I feel like she's making some kind of comment on the way that the police were treating the media and kind of strong arming them. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of interesting shit like that sprinkled through the whole film.
Yeah. And she's making total sense. She's like, I mean, he could be dying right now. We could save his life. You know what I mean? And this guy's just giving her a hard time and giving these guys plenty of time to leave. And through that whole thing, you're like, come on. They're getting away with this shit. So it's working.
And it gets comical, right? And I appreciate the split screen here, because otherwise it's just an episode of Three's Company. You know what I'm saying? And it would dilute the message. It would dilute the impact of that scene.
Oh, yeah. Steph, before I send it to you, this is something I feel like I'm always going to bring up, these fucking morality situations. Like Phable, you just said that you're saying, hurry up. They're going to hide the body. Hurry up. You got to catch them. And in my mind, I'm like, hurry up. We've got to hide the body. We got to hide this thing.
We know you're totally the murderer.
They're going to get us. So Steph, I'll ask you that. Like, what did you think? And where were you at? Where was your mind at? Did you want them to hurry up and hide the body, or did you want the cops to hurry up?
You know what? It was because the scene was so well crafted, which it's my favorite bit of the movie. Because I'll just say my morality bit. I was struck down the middle. It was kind of like, who's gonna clean up first? Who's gonna get there first? It was a betting game. But I like this camera, that double angle or multiple screens they're doing, because it many times we've seen in a movie where someone does something crazy and it's like. So, like, I'm thinking of Disturbia. Shia LaBeouf calls the cops on the dude. Somehow he cleans up quick enough. You're like, how the fuck did he clean up that quick enough? Here we get to see it. It makes sense. We're like, so it can be done. So we see people like murder someone. It's like a blood house, and like 20 minutes later, the police are there, and it's like spick and span. It can be done, and this showed that. So I liked that for that. I've not really seen too many scenes like that now that I'm thinking of it, though. So, but I mean, I guess that is like a De Palma staple. But I'm gonna have to rewatch Carrie. I haven't seen that in a minute, and go over some of these. But I gotta agree with you guys. This is probably the best I've seen it done.
Kind of famously, De Palma now says he doesn't like it in Carrie. I do. I think it's cool. It doesn't take away from it. I could totally understand like why you wouldn't like it. What a lot of people argue about. He's got some like longtime creative partner. I can't think of his name, but in an interview, they spliced it together where De Palma's talking up split screen with him talking it down. And the editor in this documentary kept going back and forth. It was pretty cool. De Palma's like, oh, it's great because it does this. And this dude's like, it takes you out of the film. It ruins the illusion of film. And De Palma is just into that. He's into doing very cinematic things that might take you out of the movie, but let you know that it is a movie. And if you think about what in 1972, like in 2023, I still thought that stabbing in the knife and all that blood was pretty fucking gnarly. Then right after it, I get this very cinematic thing. And you could picture in 1972, somebody like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Come on, Clarice. Yeah. And then be like, oh, hold on. It's just a movie. There's 2 screens. We're fine. Like, so I do kind of see it's letting the audience off the hook in a way for what they just saw.
Well, I think at this point we've become accustomed to like seeing it in like sitcoms when people are like talking on the fucking phone to each other, and movies that do it like that, and they try to be clever. And in Dress to Kill, there's a lot of conversations on the phone that go that way, but there's like this cool like blending effect with it, right? So I think it would have hit differently then than it does now, for sure.
Right. Because you're right,
and you got to try stuff. You got to try stuff. You got to move the medium forward, and if you got to take a bullet to do it, I mean, that's why he's an artist. He don't care. He'll take that bullet. I'm not Spielberg. and it's stupid.
That's something you said last week, Phable, that I keep thinking about. You said that about Don't Breathe. You're like, I love anytime a director tries something. And as I'm watching this movie, I'm like, oh, this is 50 years before that. This is him trying something. And then plus, just speaking on Don't Breathe real quick, the way that we're about to get into the changing of perspectives, changing of characters, and changing our alliances with certain characters. That is something that is very Hitchcockian. And that's something, the more I think about Don't Breathe, like that was really interesting. It was fucking really, really well done in Don't Breathe, the way they were changing our alliances with certain characters.
Think about it like this. You in the beginning of the show, you showed us a bunch of directors, right? Like the Brad Packard directors, right? Why are they all known for what they know? Because they all move the needle.
Right.
Each one of them moved the needle in some way. So you gotta, things like this, whether they hit or miss or they age badly, it has to be done. And I'm glad he tried it at least.
Hell yeah, dude. Well said, my friend. All right, so let's bring the old slideshow up. Again, we have Jennifer Salt. Before I move on, I guess this is kind of interesting. I wanted to get this in at some point. Her and Margot Kidder, they had met each other and they become fast friends. They had this place in California. De Palma was friends with Jennifer Salt, this actress here. They had went to school together at some place. They went to film school. And Jennifer Salt and Margot Kidder's house was like the party spot on the weekends for the movie brats, for everyone to get together and kind of hang out. And that's where this movie was conceived at. So there was a little interesting bit of Hollywood lore right there, like George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola all sitting around, probably doing all hella drugs and drinking and who God knows what, and coming up with these crazy movies. Yeah.
Make Hollywood great again. Make Hollywood great again. Let's bring cocaine back to California, man.
Oh, God. All right. So, okay. Basically, what I want to get into next is this chunk of the movie where we find all of a sudden, like after she's going through Margot Kidder's apartment with the cops, and this very strange, like 7-minute bit where they're letting her like go through her closet, look through all of her shit. They can't find anything. And we've got this whole chunk of the movie where now she's our main character. She's got a bit where this is her in the apartment there with Margot Kidder and the detectives. She goes to the cake store where old boy bought the cake earlier. She's doing some investigating. She's with her mom here. And the woman that plays her mom, fun fact, is her actual mother in real life. And if you ever watch the film again, you'd be like, oh, that fucking reads. Like you can tell that, like the way she comes across. And a lot of this, they kind of wrote this into the movie for De Palma. The mother pushing marriage on her, the problem that she had with amphetamines and shit that they talk about in the film. All this is from Jennifer Salt's real life.
Can you go back to that image real quick?
Sure.
I just want to point out the store behind them, Bill's World of Sports. I'm Robbie Bills. So there you go. This is my sporting goods store. Check us out.
I didn't know what was coming. He was like, in Godfather, you will notice where Sonny goes. I was like, okay, here it comes. So she talks to her publisher. He tells her, you need to hire a private eye. She gets Charles Durning, pretty well-known actor, especially for the era. He's done a ton of comedic roles and a bunch of stuff. They do a little bit of investigating. They get the files for these sisters because a magazine had written a story about them a year ago. And I'm trying to think of what I have here. Okay. Long story short, they do a big investigation and they end up at this psych ward right here. So, Robbie, I'm going to start with you. What did you think of just the way that the perspective, the point of view is changed for us? Well, we've got a different perspective character. It's done in a bunch of movies. How do you think it was handled in Sisters?
You know, it's that thing that we were talking about in Psycho, where you have the first act through Janet Leigh's character, Marion Crane, right? You have her perspective, and then you shift it and you get to her sister investigating her murder. And so, like, it's very much the similar thing.
Right.
And Psycho, it gets a little dull there. Unfortunately, or I should say, fortunately, we have Norman Bates. Anthony Perkins is Norman Bates, or Vince Vaughn, however you swing, as far as that goes. Those interpretations of that character kind of keep us a little bit more engaged throughout the rest of the film. And this one, Margot Kidder kind of like disappears in this section of the film, and the movie becomes quite fucking dull and boring, honestly. And that character, the reporter, is kind of insufferable, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all, to be honest.
I feel you, man. I was afraid this might happen. I want to know all you guys' thoughts on it, honestly. But like, I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I have a similar experience where there's nothing that they do in this chunk of the film that I don't like. Almost every scene, I honestly think is kind of cool, but almost every scene, there's like a couple 15, 30, 45 minute chunks, and it's like you're dragging this scene out. They lose the pacing in this part of the movie, but and maybe you guys can tell me bits like things that actually happen in this chunk that you don't like, and I would agree with you maybe, but I can't think of too much I don't like. But I will say I do like Jennifer Salt as an actress in this. Like I like her character. She's pushy and she's believable. I think she does a great performance, but she is a bit, like we said, maybe a little abrasive, maybe a little annoying.
Bro, if she was on Twitter, we'd all be blocked. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. Well, so let's take it around then. Phable, and this is before we get to the psychiatric part. What do you think of this chunk of the film?
I'm so glad. You guys make me so happy when you obviously knew something was going to fall off here, and you alluded to it. You wondered what we thought. I gotta agree with you, man. Totally falls off for me here. This is the first bump in the road in this movie for me. Robbie is absolutely right. You're trying to emulate Psycho, but you don't have Norman Bates, that crazy husband, doctor, crazy guy. Nah, he's not cutting it. He's not cutting it. He's terrible to me. You hate the lady, I hate him. I think he's horrible. But yeah. And I agree with you too, Verno. I think she is a good actress. I think she is a good character. It's just like you just spent 30 minutes romancing us with Margot Kidder and Cool Guy, and then they both disappear, and now I'm left with this lady who's just like, we got to listen about her mother, and they're going cake shopping. I'm like, what the hell? You just killed the dude. I don't want to know about cakes and nothing like that. So yeah, man. First bump in the road is right here. Loses it totally.
I agree with everything you said, but I will say they didn't go cake shopping. She was cake investigating. That's where dude went to get the cake decorated.
T-shirts coming soon. Cake investigator.
Lynk, what about you, my brother? What do you think of this chunk?
Kind of there with you, Brian. I don't necessarily think there's anything I don't like about it, but it's just a disservice that we were they, like Phable and Robbie said, they warmed us up to Margot Kidder, then she's gone, and the dude killed him outright, so it's like the two characters we had for like the first chunk of the film are just vamoose. So maybe it's not bad, but it's just that maybe they made those guys too endearing, and she wasn't as endearing as them. It did again. That's the reason I think it dragged just a bit, is because that handoff to the character, you didn't care. It's like she kind of like the whole. I keep forgetting the word. I don't want to say abrasive, assertive. The whole her being so assertive and boisterous and just so loud and demanding. I think it's a very polar opposite to Margot Kidder's timid and charming and quiet and cute thing going on. So, yeah. I can't say it was bad, but it definitely didn't keep the momentum of the first half of the film.
Right. That's the word right there. I think is momentum. Like it's obviously a difficult thing to accomplish, to switch your perspective character, and especially not to introduce her earlier. You just see her through a window. It's not like the first scene is with her and like she's somehow a part of the movie at the start. She's just brought in after I have already fallen in love with two of the characters in the movie. And Robbie, I'm glad you said it. It's exactly what it is. Like in my head earlier, I'm sitting there arguing to myself. I'm like, well, in my opinion, I never become engrossed with the story of Janet Leigh's friend and the guy that come to the hotel in Psycho. That I don't think that's done super well, and I don't get engrossed with them, but they have Norman Bates and he's super interesting, and that's what that's all about. Your perspective is now with the killer in that movie. It's like he didn't have the confidence, or maybe he didn't want to mimic Psycho too much to make Margot Kidder a factor in this chunk of the movie. So I think that's where he misses for me, is involving her. And you nailed it, Robbie, in some way.
It's the lack of understanding what makes Psycho compelling. It wasn't the fact that they kill off a character and change to another character. And many movies have tried this. is that they kill the main character and then have a switch to the perspective of the killer.
Right.
That's the difference. And
Right.
and Psycho does fault when it doesn't realize, even Psycho doesn't realize that. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, I'm ready for the movie to really understand that. And maybe we need to make that.
There's an emotional tie there too, because when she's coming in, she's looking for a sister, and you know what happened to her sister.
Right.
So you're like,
right.
You know, it hits different because of the relationship.
Right. This falls perfectly in line. And again, this is something I'm learning this week is maybe more of a Hitchcock thing than it is a Italian giallo thing. But in almost goddamn every Italian giallo film, it's someone witnessing a murder, and then they're the detective for the rest of the movie. And a lot of times it might be the guy's a music teacher, he's an artist of some sort. Sometimes it's a reporter. That's one thing I appreciate about this movie, is that like she has a reason to at least be trying to solve the crime. She is a reporter.
Well, plus the police don't give a shit about this black man being stabbed.
Right.
Like that's an element in the film, right? And that's right. And but they never let us connect with her in a good way. I don't know. They almost play up like more of like a camaraderie with the police for some reason, like where the police are the good guys. Because when we get to the end, you know, it's almost like you kind of see it reversed a little bit.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this bad boy up, man. As I say, we've got this. I will say this: if I will say I predicted, what we're gonna learn is that Margot Kidder does not have a twin. They were separated before, and her twin died, and now part of that twin's like psyche is inside of the current Margot Kidder that we have, right? And that's why sometimes she goes crazy when she gets aroused, pretty much.
And they're conjoined twins.
Yeah.
Right. And they had to it was the idea that they're like, because like I got a little fuzzy towards the end of this film.
So, you know what? Let me go ahead and play this. We can talk over this.
I'm glad we all agree.
We get this, and again, I edited this. This might be a little long and there's no sound, but we get this long like dream sequence once our investigator gets to this experimental psychiatric ward where she's taken prisoner, more or less. This is supposed to be like her subconscious is now putting her in the position of the now dead conjoined twin, and she's witnessing their separation. And this is pretty much supposedly how it went down. Margot Kidder wanted to fucking, for some reason, make sweet, sexy love with this ugly son of a bitch. So they cut her sister off, and the sister ended up dying. And we're learning all this because our reporter, she follows old creepy guy to this psychiatric ward. And this to me is the most horrific part of the movie. And like gives me like claustrophobia. She goes into the place and they're like, oh, you can, the guy trimming the bushes, like, you can use our phone. Go ahead. So she goes in, she's like, I'm going to call the cops. I've got this murderer here. And then the guy shows up, the doctor, and he tells the orderly, oh, she's a patient. Take her away. She thinks her name is Grace, but this is blah, blah, blah. It gives her a new name. And there's something so like claustrophobic about the idea that she's like, no, I'm not crazy, but this man of authority is saying you are, and you're here, so we're locking you up. And that like freaks me the fuck out, like for whatever reason. But I will say I am totally lost during this whole chunk of the movie. I don't think the dream sequence is done particularly well. I think when I was watching this, I was like, oh, he's trying to do Polanski here. Like, this is Rosemary's Baby, like the dream sequence in that. But it's just, he says for budgetary reasons, he doesn't like that dream sequence. They got a bunch of quote unquote real circus performers. I was going to call them freaks, but I guess I won't. Circus performers from the time, and they brought them in and they filmed for a day, and it comes off as kind of whack. Let's just switch it up. Lynk, I'm going to start with you. What do you think of just this chunk of the film leading up to the very end? Like, were you pretty confused for this whole bit? Or also, did that freak you out too when they took her into custody?
Yeah, there's a uncomfortability about that. You're just everything about your livelihood, your power, your choices just being stripped away from you based on someone else's word. Because it just, how easily that could, well, not easily that could happen, but in the movie they made it seem very plausible. Right. But I will agree with you guys. This towards the end, it just, I guess it keeps losing momentum. Right. This it just gets very. I'm with you guys. It was very easy towards the end. Like I was like, all right, so she is a twin, Are you sure twins dead? Because didn't star on her as well? Like, didn't they cut the reporter and shit as star on her? Am I
Yeah,
might
no,
have
it's
been
weird,
missing
though.
thing.
They separating them and the twin died is the way I understand it.
So like,
Okay.
is the idea not that like she was pregnant by this doctor and the pregnancy was
Lost the
being like fucked up
baby,
and she was going to die and lose the kid unless they severed the shit? Like, I'm
I don't
so
know.
confused, man.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
perfectly honest with you, you're saying that I'm like, oh yeah, I think there was something like that, but I don't know.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
I thought maybe I had drinking a beer too much that night. I don't know. Like, I was
No.
like, have I taken too much?
I'm
fucking
so
weed?
relieved because I thought Robbie was gonna come in here and be like, "What? That means this and that means that." And I'm like, no,
I was kind of hoping he
I was
would,
waiting on you
brother.
guys to explain it. And I was just gonna, yeah, it's like, yeah, that did mean that.
Yeah. The only reason why I can say that this is what happened is because I read about it. So, and we know that that's not necessarily a good sign about a movie where you have to get your info about it from outside sources. But Link, were you finished up or?
Yeah, yeah, it lost me a little bit. I can't lie.
Phable, my brother?
Yeah, second bump in the road, man. The first bump was the character switch. This is when this started happening. All right, I'm a little slow. Okay, I might need to like watch some a couple times because when they start going down these kind of like imagery roads where I feel like De Palma's trying to tell me something and it's going totally over my head, right? Like he's doing all these weird camera angles all of a sudden, going in her eye, out her eye, back in her eye, out her eye. He's doing all this weird stuff, and I'm like, oh shit, did he just get artsy on me? And I'm too slow right now. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's trying to say with all this crazy shit, right? But even though if that is true, and even if he is saying something, and even if it is flying over my head, it's not supposed to fly over my head. I gotta enjoy this movie, right? So the fact that it's confusing me at that point, and it's just weird, artsy, weird shit, it lost me again. Like Lynk said, it continued to lose momentum. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Hell yeah, I'm right there with you. What about you, Robbie?
Well, I would say I agree with you, but now the more that you have both talked about it, the more I'm like, I've only seen this one time. Maybe the second time I'm going to be like, maybe there is something to the imagery here. I don't know. I was
thinking.
Like, I don't know.
Because
like,
they showed the twins. They showed pairs of twins, and they're handing each other the knife, and they're doing all this weird stuff. And I'm like, okay, he's saying something here. I know he's saying something. De Palma is an artist. He's saying something here.
Yeah.
But I don't get it.
Right, and it's like the Wizard. It's like the Wizard of Oz, where everybody that she's seen throughout the movie is part of this dream sequence too. So it's like, yeah.
I think one of the things that like hinders this film is that it started, like Verno said, from an image. De Palma got an idea. Let me have a story wrapped around this idea, but the theme doesn't necessarily work so much with the story, right? But I'm confused by the end of this film too, right? And like in Psycho, the very, very tail end of the film, you get a psychological explanation as to why Norman Bates was doing what he was doing, right? It's very quick, very succinct, and it's done. Boom. We end with him smiling as they're explaining, and the movie's over, right? It's like a Warren Ellis comic, right? The last page explains everything and it's done. No resolution. But this one tries to, I think De Palma's like, let me take this Psycho formula a step further and really dive into the psychological explanation through symbolism. But even not, I don't think there's anything super symbolic about this. I think it's about a dude, a doctor, who was like grooming this fucking conjoined twin, had sex with her, impregnated her, convinced her to sever her other sister from herself, killing the other sister. And now she's like so fucked up with trauma over that's leaking the fuck out. Right. And she eventually kills that fucker. Right. When he's the one that goats her back out. Right. So it is this is a movie about trauma, but the biggest point is what society, how at that time, and unfortunately even today, how society treats minorities, including women and people of color. Right. And it's something that, like, with the way that the police treated it, with the way that even I was talking about the reporter. She was insufferable. No, she's not Donnie Cates, some fucking white dude making comics, having the time of his fucking life, right? Like, I shouldn't call her insufferable. You get what I'm saying? Because she had some valid points, but at the same time, sometimes you just gotta understand. I don't know. There's elements to that, but this movie is trying to say some real shit, but it's not necessarily fully tied in with the idea of duality that could be explored with this. That being said, the ending of this movie is rather fucking confusing, but I also think maybe slightly almost brilliant. Almost
Maybe.
not quite there.
Let me say
sure
that.
But working towards it. This is somebody who's you say you like somebody that tries Phable. This is De Palma trying for the first time.
No, for sure.
Really.
For sure. He's going there, and like I said, when he does it, it doesn't match. You said it earlier.
Yeah.
It doesn't match what he's doing. So it throws you off. And then because it's throwing you off, it sucks the joy out of the movie. And at the same time, now I got to turn on my brain. Now I got to turn on my director art brain.
He learns his lesson because he's like, okay, I can do this kind of ending again, but better in Dress to Kill. But don't do this kind of ending in Scarface.
Right. All right.
Could you imagine if Scarface ended with something like that?
Oh, and can I say, I want to say one thing. Verno, you said it earlier. I agree with you. This is the scariest part of the film where she's made to look like she's crazy. I agree with you 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why it was so fearful to me, because when she was trying to verify who she was, no cell phones, no computers, no this, no that, no, you know what I mean? No instant recognizability. You got to call. Yeah, so that in alone was scary. And also, her character kind of changed a little bit because she was so strong-headed, and then she felt like such a wimp when they just grabbed her. She was too relaxed. Yeah, so that's just that, a compliment and a complaint about that whole thing.
Oh, it's funny. The husband dude, because he's like De Palma said that's why he picked him, is because he wanted like this untrustworthy, smart, swarmy looking dude, and I guess he did that perfect casting because
this is what a red herring looks like. You know what I mean? Like you see this guy, he's wearing the black gloves, which is every killer in every Giallo movie is wearing black gloves. Yeah, the little mustache and everything. He's a villainous looking son of a bitch.
Well, I would argue that he's not really a red herring. He is the villain of the film.
Right.
Right?
For sure.
He caused everything.
Right. I mean, he's almost a red herring in the sense that you think he's going to be the person that is the killer.
No, they show you that it's Margot Kidder in the very fucking beginning. Like in her look. Like, can we just talk about that real quick? Like Margot Kidder, like playing both roles, killing it, man. Right. This is like James McAvoy in 1972 doing Split. Right. This is really good.
The look that she gets with her tongue sticking to the side and like that image right there. When I showed those images at the beginning of this show from Carrie and from Mission Impossible and Scarface, like it's a shame to me, and it's because of the second half of this movie and all the issues that we've had with it, that image isn't on that list of like iconic Brian De Palma images, because it's one of the more gnarly looking kills. Robbie, you said it. I was so thrilled to hear you say that. It's one of the gnarlier kills in horror history, I think. It really is, man. I love it. Earlier, Sam said he ordered this Blu-ray because of that scene that we showed.
It's on Criterion too, bruh, and I don't even have it. Let's put it on the list, baby. Let's do it. There it is.
This is one of those things, like when I ordered this, even when I watched this the first time, I'm like, it's not a film that's a fucking perfect film. This isn't a masterpiece film. I've heard people say, is this De Palma's first masterpiece? I will say I don't think so, but it's an important, cool film. Like from 72 that stands way ahead of its time, that I'm totally happy to own the bad boy.
This is when like Last House on the Left is made, and like this is way more of a stylish film than that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Very stylish, to be honest, especially for 72.
So let's go ahead. Let's grade this thing. Well, just to finish it off, like where it really, really ends is we get our investigator, who we saw earlier, played by Charles Durning. It leaves, and at first I was like, what the fuck? Why are they showing this? I didn't get it at first. We see him. He's still following this couch where the body has been put inside, and he's convinced that whoever's going to pick this couch up that's who we need to take to jail. That's the murderer or something. So we end the movie with him sitting on a telephone wire very clearly with his binoculars. He's like 30 feet away from this thing, sitting there looking at the couch. And again, I had to read up on this. I'm like, what the fuck are they supposed to be telling us? What I got from it was, and this is evidently,
I'm like, what's the cow mean? What does the cow mean? The cow means something.
Evidently, all it is, it's the most obvious answer is what it seems to be. People are reading from it is that he's just sitting there waiting for this couch to be picked up by no one. No one's coming to pick this couch up. No one's going to get arrested. Nothing's going to happen. And he's just sitting there waiting for it fruitlessly, kind of.
I watched this interview with De Palma, and one of my favorite bits was he was like, and the studio was like arguing with me that you couldn't hide a body in a couch like that. I've done it. I know you can. And I went like, wait a second. Can we elaborate on that? Like
the statute of limitations is up on it. So don't worry.
I've done it.
Yeah.
He was, I've done it. I know you can. And I'm like, we need to unpack this.
Practice makes perfect.
Right.
Right.
All right, well, this is the part of the show I am very looking forward to. And I'm fucking sitting here with my mind not made up about what I'm going to grade this film. So this is one of the few benefits of being the host. I'm going to go last. So Robbie, what is your letter grade? You guys down in the chat, for those of you that took the time to watch Sisters, first of all, I appreciate you and I love you. What is your letter grade for Sisters? And then Robbie, where are you at on it, my brother?
Well, I very much appreciate this film from Brian De Palma. I very much appreciate you picking this film for Horror Fest. I enjoyed watching this film. I will buy this on Criterion Blu-ray. I will watch this again. I will probably gain more of an appreciation as I watch it further throughout my life, or maybe not. As it stands, as I am right now, a really strong opening, a really middling second act, and a sort of interesting third act that almost brings it all together for me, but almost in a little bit of a way. But certain techniques that are very much Brian De Palma were perfected, if not like done the best in this film, like the split screen. I'm going to give it what I would call a 3.5 ya digs, and here call a C+.
Bingo.
That's what I'm going to do.
Very
C+.
nice, my friend. Very nice. I loved your criteria for the C+ as well. What about you, Phable? Where do you stand, brother?
I'm going C+ as well. That's exactly where I was landing. When you just first said to think of a grade, that's the first thing that popped in my head. I don't want to give it too much credit because it could all just be nonsense and not artistic in any way, no value to it at all. It could just be horrible. But that being said, there's some futuristic directing in here. There's some ahead of the time thinking. Got to give it credit for that. Margot Kidder put in a hell of a performance. Got to give it credit for that. So yeah, I was teetering on C, but I'll give it that plus for that. You know, because it's De Palma. He's doing something. You know me. I like when they try stuff, even if I hate it.
He's doing something early.
Well said, both of you guys. What about you, Steph? Where you at, man?
Realistically, in my head, I was debating between a B- and a C+. For all the faults this movie had, there was a lot I did enjoy about it, and I'm one of those people, like, sometimes older films can be difficult for me to get through. And this, you know, like you said, this is a stylish film. This was ahead of its time. 72, they were doing a lot of shit that seemed more mainstream 10 plus years later. So with that being said, I'll give it a C+. I didn't want to jack you guys. No, I'll give B-. I don't want to jack you guys. It realistically is probably a C+.
It's okay, Steph. It's okay.
This is my favorite thing about the plus-minus system. It's a fucking nut hair we're talking about.
Right,
You can
yeah.
differentiate if you want. There's a difference between a B and a C in front of it. Or behind it.
So I'll give it a B-. I was way more entertained than I was with Dress to Kill, surprisingly. I think Dress to Kill is a little better thought out or crafted together, but I was more entertained by this in a weird way.
I totally can feel that.
Dress to Kill's sexier, though. I will say that.
Right.
So Margot Kidder.
That's Margot Kidder.
Just gonna
That's a
say.
strong point for this film.
Danielle, I love you, Danielle. I love you, Danielle.
At first, I was like, "That's her. That's her like scar thigh, right?" No. Oh no.
This I appreciate all your grades. I'm right there with you, Steph. I'm gonna go B minus. This is a very, very weird film to grade because of the super high highs. Like we already talked all about like the fact that this is 1972. That to me has a lot to do with why I want to even give it a higher grade than that. It just does not feel like that. It doesn't feel like a 72 movie at all. It's so ahead of its time. It's so stylish. I'm so much more engaged with these characters than I am, Robbie, cover your ears, with the early Argento stuff. I rewatched this week. I rewatched Bird with a Crystal Plumage. And I watched Alfred Hitchcock. I watched only half of it. I actually didn't feel like finishing it. I watched Alfred Hitchcock's 1970 film Frenzy, which was I don't know, it was okay, but I didn't finish it. And I will say, for my money, and I watched another Hitchcock film from 55 or 50, something like that. I think this movie's better than this movie, Robbie. I know you probably disagree. It's in a lot of ways. This is a much more advanced film with better, like just better ideas and better acting.
I could hear it breaking from here in New York.
I wanted to give it a higher grade.
I am biting the fuck out of my finger right now, just so you know.
Bro, rewatch this. It's like
don't tell me to fucking rewatch it. I've watched that like 20 times. Don't condescend to me. Don't condescend to me.
I have too, man. But it's like I don't know. I think it's a better film than
no. That's valid. No, I get that. But if you said that about Deep Red, we're done.
And I wouldn't. You know that. But I will say this. I mean, this is 70, by the way. This is 2 years before Sisters, and it's a more sophisticated film. I'm gonna go B minus, but a strong, the strongest I could ever recommend a B minus to someone that's interested in film and horror film and the history of film, because it's an important movie, and I'm really, really happy that no one hated it and that we all agreed on the reasons why I picked this film for Horror Fest. That you guys were like, why did you pick this film for Horror Fest? Because it's a flawed film, but the highs are so fucking high that it's a very watchable movie.
Yeah. And I know remakes get tossed around like that, but this is the kind of thing. There's a concept here that definitely could be played with. Like Robbie said, like the detective. I feel he's so underused in this movie, that detective guy. He's a great actor. Like we could have had some more with him and less of the, weird stuff at the end.
If they would have had Exorcist 3 level George C. Scott playing that fucking detective.
They remade this in 2006, but I think it might have been a foreign production. I don't know. It didn't, Steph, I know neither of us came across it on any list.
There's another movie called Sisters, which is like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler or some shit. I was watching like a review from like the dude who's on Turner Classic Movies, and I was like, oh, he's talking about Brian De Palma's Sisters. I watched it. He was talking about the Amy Poehler movie. I was like, what?
And then Amy Poehler fell on her face. Like, what? When did that happen?
Well, what's funnier? It's just like, I don't know. I'm glad that we all appreciated this film for what we appreciated for, because like if you go search right now on YouTube, Sisters 1972,
very little,
nothing. There's one review and there's a few clips from it. Like this is the second review that I can see that I've seen that's been done on this movie.
The rights to this, is this a Canadian film?
I don't think so. It was shot in New York, and no, I don't think so. That's a good question though. Criteria did it. I mean, they made the Blu-ray, what that matters, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
I think it's streaming on like Max right now, right? And I watched it. I rented it on Amazon Prime. Is what I
never heard of either of these production companies. I always like pay attention to the production companies in the beginning. I've never seen. I mean, I might have seen the first production company, but I mean, they're not around no more. Obviously,
I wonder, was it independently made or something? I wonder.
It was
because De Palma sold the script to somebody, and then he had to get somebody to buy it back for him. So I think he bought it back with another dude, and they made it independently, maybe.
I don't know. Like I heard him call it. This was shockingly. This was his 7th feature film, but it was his. I think it was his 2nd studio film. Is what I've heard him say. He did before this. Really interesting. I maybe should have said this at the beginning. He did 2 comedy dramas with Robert De Niro before this. So he got Robert De Niro his first starring role. We all know what he's done with Tom Cruise and Al Pacino, and I'm losing all the other names, but this dude has worked with everybody that's big time in the business. Yeah. And then he did this.
Who directed Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, okay, thank you. No, bothering me.
The other guy that was part of this group.
Confusing him. Yeah, I was confused. I always confuse Coppola with De Palma for some reason.
Oh, and the music in this film is fucking phenomenal.
Oh,
Bernard Herrmann,
yeah.
who did Citizen Kane and Taxi Driver and Psycho, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the music is insane in this movie. It never relents. It never relents.
It's so good.
I'll go a C plus 69.
It's got all the stuff that you would recognize from a Hitchcock score, obviously, but there's like a little bit of a sci-fi twinge to it.
It gave me, you know, it's funny. It gave me, you know, because I'm born in the 80s, obviously. It gave me Creepshow vibes, like soundtrack wise, like, you know what I mean? But now I guess Creepshow is that guy's vibes, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
John Harrison was mimicking a little bit of him, and then Richard Band doing a Reanimator kind of aped on that style too, man.
Right.
Hell yeah, man. All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I do want to quickly address the chat. You guys have been awesome tonight. Two gun up in this. Pew, 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 pew. That was way more than two guns, but you deserve it, my friend. Joram, Larry Moore, you sexy son of a bitch. Arthur Aldred, you sly. That's my brother-in-law. I'll just let it pretend that's some stranger that loves the channel. You sexy bastard. Stu, appreciate you. Sal, Lulu, Hoots up in this bitch. Obama again. He can't stop, won't stop. Sam, I appreciate you, Sam. This guy right here. I don't know how to say your last name, but you know who you are. You know how to say it.
And Sam, the beer is delicious. Sam recommended this IPA to me. Delicious.
Kenneth Bird up in this bitch as well. And Rogue Collecting. GT Key also. You guys are fucking awesome. Mr. Rock and Robbie Billups. I don't think it gets said enough. I think it's got to be either the most popular or the second most popular comic book review show in the world. Is that right?
The most popular.
It's got to be one or two.
I do believe at this time it is the most popular comic book review show on YouTube.
In the world. No, don't say on YouTube. In the fucking world.
In the world. Yeah, probably, actually. Now that CBR is all written by bots and AI and shit, like maybe. So, yeah, for sure. We're nominated for 6 CBC Awards. Best Collaboration, Monthly Comic Book Review. That's great. Verna, we miss you. I appreciate what you've done. Nominated for Best Channel in our subscription tier, nominated for Best Overall Channel, nominated for Best Comic Book Review, Best Weekly or Best Ongoing Series with the Weekly Comic Book Review, and Best Hair and Beard. So please go to cbcawards.org.
Until next year, Robbie.
Yeah, because here's the thing. PCP is going to sweep this year so that the PCP Army Bad Batch can rise next year. That's what we're going to happen. That's what we're going to have happen, y'all. Because everybody needs to recognize not just what I'm doing, how we are all making this happen, right? That's what the CBC Awards are going to be about this year. Not Reggie Collects. It's going to be about us this year, y'all, and next year as well. Horror Fest continues. Saturday night, I'll be on Dylan's Horror Show talking about Prey, which I will be watching for the first time tomorrow night.
Oh, nice.
So I'm very excited for that. And then Rock and Robbie Live, Sunday night. Cowboys are kicking off NFL Sunday Night Football with the Giants. And I'm doing a live stream. I'm not doing anything special. I'm just going to be drinking. Super chat menus activated. And we're going to be drinking and watching the fucking Cowboys game. That's what we're going to be doing Monday night. PCP movie night. I'm so excited. We have such a great panel lined up, including my man Phable over there for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Come on. Horror Fest rolls on, baby.
Hell yeah.
Week 2 complete. Yeah. Week 3 underway. Let's go.
I know. I'm so excited to be a part of it this year. This has already been awesome, dude. Everyone's killing it. Yeah. Phable, speaking of everyone killing it, what you got going on, brother?
Dude, I got a lot going on, man. I just thought about it. I'm like, holy crap. Got a bunch of stuff, man. Join me Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern on IG Live for Blade Phable and his amazing friends with Nick Comic Culture. I look like Lynk was about to say something.
In my story. No, because I made a story the wrong day.
Sometimes I come on Sunday, so you're half right. It's okay. But yeah, come join us Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern for one of the last 2 shows, guys. These are the last 2 shows I'm doing on IG with Nick and Brother Joe. We're moving to YouTube after those last 2 shows, but this will be our last guest, guys. And I'm very, very proud and happy to say that it will be Dismay Comics. Brandon, friend of the show, friend of the Army, friend of the PCP. The guy puts out an awesome book. So many more people are picking it up this round. It's surprising me. Like, it's like, oh, I backed that. I'm like, holy crap, he's really doing it. So go check us out on Saturday and go support Dismay Comics, man. And then the next day, Sunday, 11 a.m., go to House of Nerd show, man. House of Nerd podcast. I just had him on last Saturday, and I'm going to be on his show. Me and Nick are going to be on his show Sunday morning at 11 a.m. So check that out. And, of course, Robbie just said it. We're going to be rocking with Elvira on Monday, baby. You know I love me some Elvira. I give you 3 reasons with Elvira. I love her so much. But
we're taking over-unders on how many times Elvira's hills are mentioned.
Oh,
well, she encourages it in her films, right?
So yeah, man, check all that stuff out. I'm basically streaming Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Yeah.
Oh
Nice.
yeah, man.
Let's go.
The link, I'm gonna send it to Link in a moment, but just a quick reminder: the link to all these gentlemen's socials and YouTubes are in the description below. Speaking of, Steph, what do you have going on, my friend?
I did post the right story. I got your show mixed up with House of Nerds, so I made the right story for your show, made the right story for House of Nerds. I just a relief for me, guys.
Thank you for even sharing this with my brother. Thank you.
But every Wednesday, Dr. Doom's Fan Club, our good pal Stu, our brother Stu, we do a comic book and hip hop show, Supreme Clientele. Last few weeks we've had some technical difficulties. The week before, this Wednesday was good, but I just, as you guys know, I doing a move this past week, so we really have too many subjects going on. We're just kind of freehanding it, just talking about comics, whatever strikes our fancy, but we'll get back on the grind soon. We're still, every Wednesday, we're going to do a show, whether we have like a theme or not. But as of right now, we're just kind of freeballing it every Wednesday.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. Put that quote on the poster. We're freeballing it every Wednesday.
Freeballing it every Wednesday, baby.
I'm talking about.
Love it.
All right. Well, again, everybody in the chat, I super appreciate you. Everybody in the panel, you guys are awesome. This was a really fun review, and we'll see you next week for the Blob, man. We're doing the Blob. We got Lynk, Phable, and Dr. Doom, Stu himself for a classic, the Blob. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Oh, yeah.